and welcome to the First Unitarian Church. where our mission is to explore the eternal, nurture community, and pursue the common good. We welcome you in your brokenness and in your wholeness. No matter who you have been, who you are, or who you are becoming, we greet you today with love. Before we begin our service, I have some important announcements. As you can tell, we are streaming our service directly from our beautiful sanctuary this morning. And if you're watching this live, you already know we've made the switch over from Zoom to YouTube. This is where we will be streaming our services for the foreseeable future. We invite you to comment in the live chat, to say hello, and to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So the sanctuary looks pretty empty today, because it's just a worship team and some dedicated volunteers here, prepping for next Sunday, when we will be welcoming congregants back into the sanctuary for the first time in nearly 2 years. If you plan to join us next week, or the next few weeks after that, you will need to pre-register to attend. Beginning on the Wednesday before the service, you will find a link on our website, 1uc.org, that's the number 1uc.org, that will take you to a registration form. As long as COVID remains a significant concern, we will need to limit the number of people attending so we can ensure proper distancing. Please be sure to register as soon as possible to reserve your place in the pews. And now, let us begin and prepare for worship with our prelude, performed by Diane Broyles.
Good morning. We light the chalice as a symbol of our sacred time together. The burning chalice represents the light of reason and science, the warmth of loving community, and the cleansing heat of justice and the flame of hope.
Once again, I greet you today in love. I'm Reverend Diana Davies, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. On this day after Darwin Day, we open with these words from the great naturalist, quote, "If everyone was cast in the same mold, there would be no such thing as beauty." And, quote, "Nothing exists for itself alone, but only in relation to other forms of life." So come then into this sacred time of relationship, this time in which we hold one another in our glorious differences and find beauty in the complex interplay of our lives. Our opening hymn is "Our World is One World."
Our story today is told by Faye Mogensen and is called Strength in Unity. A dark cloud of worry spread through the forest. No longer were the hunters satisfied with capturing birds in their snares one at a time. So they had developed a new technology. They were taking long strands of fiber, crisscrossing one strand over another, and tying the strands fast at those intersections. Do you know what they were making? They were making nets. Now, instead of capturing a single bird, they could capture a handful, a dozen, or hundreds of them all at once. The birds that escaped this new invention were frightened. What could they do? Some birds, they lost all hope. It's pointless, they peeped with feeble voices. There's no way we can escape this horror. We might as well give up right now. Others got busy, building up their muscle strength and sharpening their bills. If I get caught, boasted those birds, I'll be able to cut my way free. I'll be strong enough to fly away. It was encouraging to hear hope, but not all of the birds liked the brazen approach of the strong birds. Some of the birds said, if I escape while others die, my life will be filled with unhappiness. A meeting was called. We like meetings. A meeting was called. The birds talked back and forth. Ka-ka-ka, chickadee-dee-dee, cuckoo, cuckoo. At last, the birds had a plan. And sure enough, it wasn't long before they had the chance to test it. Peep, peep, Many birds heard the call, a call of distress. Who was it? Birds of all shape and size flew toward the sound. They landed on the branches of a big tree. But where was the injured bird? They couldn't see it. And then suddenly they were trapped beneath a net. It was a trick, and now they could barely move. Well, some of the birds panicked and cried out, but others remained calm. And soon a whisper ran through the flock of birds that had been caught. Take a deep breath. Remember our plan. When the king of birds sings, let us all flap our wings. The whisper was repeated, and soon it resounded from one end of the net to the other. Take a deep breath. Remember our plan. When the king of birds sings, let us all flap our wings. The birds breathed in together. The king whistled a plaintive note. And the birds began to flap their wings. Go ahead and flap with me at home. Go ahead and flap those wings. Now, it was hard work. When it began to feel impossible for some of the birds, they looked over at their neighbors who were also hard at work and felt encouraged. They began to flap their wings. And suddenly, they lifted right out of that tree. They rose higher and higher into the sky, carrying the net with them. The king whistled a plaintive note once more. The birds tilted their bodies to the side in unison as though they were one. The net slid off their backs and dropped to the ground. And after that, a new melody could be heard in the forest. Their strength in unity. Their strength in unity. That is the story of how the birds met their worst fears. It is the story of how we can meet ours. The end.
Every Sunday, we take an offering. Since 2002, all the cash and designated checks that have gone from that offering have gone directly to external nonprofit organizations doing good work, our Change for Change partners. For the month of February, our Change for Change partner is the FOS Collaborative of Meadville Lombard Theological School. Meadville Lombard is one of just 2 seminaries in the United States that are grounded in the Unitarian Universalist tradition. Meadville Lombard is the home of the FOS Collaborative, which is a cohort of religious educators committed to developing inclusive, anti-racist, theologically grounded resources for faith formation. The FOS Collaborative's work directly impacts people in congregations and other organizations through innovative curricula that dismantle the status quo and cultural walls, support people in living meaningful, socially conscious, and spiritually grounded lives. You can make your gift by sending a check to First Unitarian. Just write Change for Change on the memo line, or make your online payment through our website, the1uc.org. Our offertory is We Belong to One Another. This is the familiar music by John Wyeth, but with words from Amanda Udis Kessler, performed once again by Lana Henson, Warren Palmer, and Becky Talent.
My name is Ingrid Young, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I am past president of the Board of Trustees, have been a teacher for RE, led the coming of age class with my husband Rob, and have been a mentor in the coming of age program for 3 young people. I'm a member of Alliance and have served on the Committee on Ministry. I joined First Unitarian Church in 1995. Reverend Diana asked me to give a reflection with thoughts about our 7th principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. I started thinking first about dependence. This is not something that's spoken of as a positive. To be seen as dependent conveys the idea that one doesn't have the necessary skills to be on their own. Our culture places value on being independent. We've been fed so many images which seem to make independence a virtue. From media, movies, and books, we have it drummed into us that making it on your own is so much better than making it together. The scientist struggles alone countless nights in the lab and emerges years later with a brilliant invention. Never mind that that's not how science actually works. The Lone Ranger rides the prairie, righting wrongs as he goes. How about the movie single mom who goes up against the school, then the school district, and finally the state legislature to right a wrong for her family on her own, a real mama bear? We know that these are fictions. There isn't much that we can accomplish on our own. So how do I feel about being part of an interdependent web? Well, I've never been completely comfortable with the idea that I very much need other people. It's too frightening to think about the truth that everything I value most, what I experience as the core of who I am, depends on my people being here, now, in my life. I try to deny how much I need my people, partly because it is also clear to me that impermanence is the rule, not the exception. My first ideas of what I wanted to share when I was asked to give a reflection could be summarized by what I learned about myself being the president of this congregation during a global pandemic in brief. The first thing I learned was how many people give to our church on a sacrificial level. The work, the focus, and the finances it takes to keep the wheels on this bus are so much greater than I had understood. That I was given a chance to play a small role in this made me both humble and proud. Humble because I truly had not been aware of the magnitude of work you, the staff and people of First UU of OKC, put into enriching my life, and proud that I could have a part in this. The next thing I learned is a little embarrassing and definitely not to my credit. I had been largely ignorant of the meaning of being part of an actual religion. My previous understanding was more about what we UUs are not. I was missing the larger and more important piece about who we are. We are a religious community that has a vision of transforming the world to be a more just and equitable and beautiful place. I learned about this vision by simply being with and listening to the people in this community and this church leadership group. On my own, I would never think I could make a difference in this messed up world. I wouldn't dare to imagine that I could change a place to become truly accessible, inclusive, and welcoming. And on my own, I couldn't. But the vision was named and thought about. And as part of the web of my community, this vision will lead to changes. We are working together in so many ways for progress that no one person could make alone. We are imperfect people who will always love each other imperfectly. Our web of connection is part of our being, our vision, and our hope for things to work on together, and I want to do that with you.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. Would you please take a centering breath with me? Wherever you are, whether in the pews in the sanctuary or watching from home, take a comfortable seat. Beloveds, we are poised at the threshold of the next phase in our life as a congregation. This is a joyous time and a time of trepidation, a time of energy and a time of exhaustion. May we hold each other in tenderness, in forgiveness, and in love. May we celebrate one another's joys and care for one another in our sorrows. Today, we hold in our hearts those in our community who are recovering from illness, including several who are recovering from COVID. We send our love to the adults and children in our congregation who are healing from surgery. We share the complicated feelings of 2 refugee families from Afghanistan who are mourning the loss of their homes, but who, thanks in part to the support of this congregation, are now looking forward to moving into a new home here in Oklahoma City. We celebrate the birth of a beautiful child to our friends Juliet and Beato, and we mourn with the Smith family who are experiencing a time of profound trouble and heartbreak. May all of these know that they are held in a web of love, light, and support. And now, in silence, may we bring into that same light the joys and concerns of our hearts. May it be so, and amen. So tomorrow is Valentine's Day. So of course I want to talk with you about love. As it happens, I have recently fallen in love with the Hawaiian bobtail squid. Now, I happen to think this little critter is absolutely adorable. When you Google the Hawaiian bobtail squid, as I hope many of you will, your first reaction may be to think, well, beauty really must be in the eye of the beholder. And yes, maybe there's nothing particularly flashy or elegant about this little guy. And they are little, only about 3 centimeters in size. But what you can't tell about these tiny little squid, just by looking at them, is that they have an amazing superpower. And this superpower is the secret to their survival in a hostile environment in which much bigger critters would just love to have them as a snack. They can shine like the moon and the stars. Well, not quite. Let me explain. You see, the Hawaiian bobtail squid is a shy little creature. Because of their diminutive size and lack of defenses, they hide out during the day, and they come out at night to hunt. And this might work just fine on a dark, moonless night. But on a clear night, when the moon and the stars are shining, their shadow would give them away. Predators lurking below, seeing a small dark shape gliding through the rays of moonlight or starlight in the water, well, they would snap them right up. So the Hawaiian bobtail squid makes its own light. Or rather, bacteria living inside it make light. The little squid and a particular kind of bacteria, Vibrio fischeri, have what is called a symbiotic relationship. As a hatchling, the Hawaiian bobtail squid secretes a sticky substance made of sugars and amino acids that the Vibrio find to be delicious. The bacteria find a home within the squid, and they exchange their light for food. But it's more complicated and more amazing than that. Because it's not that the bacteria have a pre-existing home within the squid. They help make it. It is the presence of the bacteria that initiates changes in the squid's gene expression that build its light organ in which the bacteria will dwell. To the observer, the squid lights up. But it's not that simple. The squid is what is known as a holobiont, a host organism, and a variety of other species living in, on, or near it that together make up an ecological unit or a system. Now, while the Hawaiian bobtail squid might seem exotic, it turns out that it really isn't. Because plants and animals are all holobionts, including you and me. Only about half the cells in our bodies are human cells. There are about 500 types of bacteria living on our skin, between 500 and 1,000 different types living in our guts, along with plenty of viruses, some helpful and some not. And then there are all those fungi that find in us a home. No matter how much we may douse ourselves in Purell and scrub down all the surfaces in our homes with disinfectant, bacteria are simply a part of our lives. They are a part of what makes us, us, literally. Without the bacteria we ingest in our mother's milk, for example, our immune systems and gut don't develop completely. We aren't just home to other beings. We are shaped by them.
Symbiosis, in this sense, is the biological equivalent of the cultural concept of Ubuntu. This term, Ubuntu, comes from the Zulu and Xhosa languages spoken in South Africa. It is sometimes translated as, I am because you are. As Archbishop Desmond Tutu put it, quote, "We are different so that we can know our need of one another, for no one is ultimately self-sufficient," unquote. Or in the words of Nelson Mandela, Ubuntu is, quote, "the profound sense that we are human only through the humanity of others. That if we are to accomplish anything in this world, it will in equal measure be due to the work and achievements of others," unquote. Both biological symbiosis and the cultural concept of Ubuntu are forms of interdependence. Now, as Unitarian Universalists, we like to talk about interdependence. It's right there in our 7th principle, in which we affirm our respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. But I think that little tacked on phrase at the end, "of which we are a part," is telling. We seem to need that extra reminder that the web isn't out there and we are somehow apart from it. And it makes sense that we need reminding. The 6 principles that come before this one are, after all about human beings. And more than this, they are about individual human beings interacting in specific ways, with respect, with justice, equity, and compassion, with acceptance and encouragement, with freedom and responsibility, and with democratic processes. The 6th principle circles back to justice again, but this time it's at the level of peoples and nations more than individuals. The focus on individual human beings interacting with one another is both one of the most beautiful aspects of our faith and one of the most problematic. Beautiful, because it highlights our differences, our unique perspectives and experiences. And problematic, because a focus on individuals, even individuals interacting in the context of community, can morph into an emphasis on individualism. And as a faith, we may respect the interdependent web of all existence, but we seem to love our independence more. So why is independence so valued in our UU congregational culture? Well, maybe because so many of us came out of other faith traditions that seemed steeped in codependency. I'm talking about, for example, some Christian theologies in which the codependent relationship gets played out, and a Savior who gives and gives to the point of sacrificing his own life for the benefit of helping humans addicted to sin. In some cases, that example becomes the model for Christ's followers, especially women who are expected to live a life of sacrifice for the sake of others. Now, others of us may privilege independence as an antidote to assimilation, to the idea that you're supposed to believe a certain way or behave in a certain way in order to be good, in order to be saved. But there's another reason why personal independence is so valued in our congregations, and this reason may make some of us feel uncomfortable. The reality is that Unitarian Universalism, as it exists in the United States, grew out of the same dominant culture as other organizations and systems that maintain the structure of white supremacy. And an emphasis on standalone independence and rugged individualism is part and parcel of that culture. But our choice does not need to be between codependence and independence, between assimilation and individualism. There is another way: interdependence. I don't mean the kind of exchange between individuals that sometimes gets described as interdependence in Western cultures. You know, you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. I mean the kind of interdependence where we mutually constitute and shape one another. I'm talking about the kind of relationship where we don't just coexist. We don't just learn from each other. We don't just help each other. We actually love one another into being. I'm talking about the kind of interdependence described in a gospel song made famous by Kirk Franklin. I need you, you need me, you are important to me, I need you to survive. Now, some of us may recoil at that last line, I need you to survive. What is that if not codependence? But codependence is a dead end, a closed loop from which nothing new emerges. In the classic codependent relationship, one person needs to need and the other needs to be needed. It's a death spiral, like a snake swallowing its own tail. But what we might think of as the opposite of codependence, the aspiration for full independence, ultimately leads to the same dead end. By refusing to need or be needed, we cut ourselves off from the generative force of life. We become a part of that same individualist culture that has ravaged the planet, that has promoted my way or the highway style politics, that has made fetishes out of guns and raged against the wearing of masks. There is another way. I need you. You need me. You are important to me. I need you to survive. I am because you are. I am because we are. And who are we? We are atheist and theist. We are the healthy and the immunocompromised. We are the old and the young. We are the people who hate interacting through screens and the people for whom screens are a lifeline. We are the people who just want to move on and the people who have reason to be afraid. We are the people who are tired and disaffected, and the people who are so excited we are bouncing off the walls. We are the people who long for the way things used to be, and the people who long for a different way. We are a complex network of disabilities, privileges, and oppressions, and we need each other. Interdependence is not weakness. To be interdependent is to be on the side of life. To be interdependent is to truly know love. In her essay, Shimmer, When All You Love Is Being Trashed, Aboriginal eco-philosopher Deborah Bird Rose writes about a concept that comes from Indigenous people in the Victoria River region of Australia's Northern Territory. Roughly translated as brilliance or shimmer. Bir Yun is, quote, a process of encounter and transformation, not absorption, in which different ways of being and doing find interesting things to do together. She goes on, and we are called into recognition of the shimmer of life's pulses and the great patterns within which the power of life expresses itself. We are therefore called into gratitude for the fact that in the midst of terrible destruction, life finds ways to flourish, and that the shimmer of life does indeed include us. Unquote. To be a part of the shimmer of life is about more than respecting the interdependent web of all existence. It is about truly, deeply loving that web of which we are indeed a part, from which we cannot truly ever be independent, because the web is life itself. There's no denying it. The pandemic has been very hard on all of us. It has been hard on this beloved community, but we are lured to something new, something life-giving, something generative and creative, a process of encounter and transformation in which different ways of being and doing find interesting things to do together, in which life finds ways to flourish. Our congregation, our faith, so small in the great sea of religions and faiths and philosophies, so fragile in our commitment not to a divine, omnipotent being, but to our fellow fallible earthlings. We have this one superpower, if we will only use it: interdependence. Interdependence is manifested in our covenant to struggle together, sometimes as compadres and sometimes as combatants, but always in love. Stubbornness, individualism, and rigid independence will not serve us, and they will not save us. Salvation lies in our willingness to be changed by the other, to be loved and needed by others, and to love and need others in return. Only through interdependence will we shimmer. Through interdependence, we may shine. Our closing hymn today is Where You Go, I Will Go by Shoshona Jedwab, once again performed by Lana Henson, Warren Palmer, and Becky Talent.
Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. ancestors. Where you lie, I will lie. Where you lie, I will lie, ancestors. Where you lie, I will lie. And your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you lie, I will lie, beloved. Where you lie, I will lie. Where you lie, I will lie, beloved. Where you lie, I will lie. And your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of love and community which burns in our hearts.
Although we are small in numbers here in the sanctuary, I'd like to kick off a new habit today. As the postlude plays, I invite you to remain seated so that the worship team can exit down the aisle and greet you outside. In order to avoid a crowd forming at the center, we'll exit row by row, beginning in the balcony and moving from back to front. Please wait for an usher to indicate when it's your turn. Since we're all ushers here today, you can take care of yourselves. There will be no in-person coffee hour this week or the following Sunday, but those of you who are joining us online are welcome to come back for our virtual social time on Facebook, right where it used to be. Zoom. Ah! How quickly we forget on Zoom where it used to be. And now I leave you today with this blessing by Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker. Your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or curse the world. The mind's power, the strength of the hands, the reaches of the heart, the gift of speaking, listening, imagining, seeing, waiting, any of these can serve to feed the hungry, bind up wounds, welcome the stranger. Praise what is sacred, do the work of justice, or offer love. Any of these can draw down the prison door, hoard bread, abandon the poor, obscure what is holy, comply with injustice, or withhold love. You must answer this question: what will you do with your gifts? Choose to bless the world. The choice to bless the world is more than an act of will, a moving forward into the world with the intention to do good. It is an act of recognition, a confession of surprise, a grateful acknowledgement that in the midst of a broken world, unspeakable beauty, grace, and mystery abide. There is an embrace of kindness that encompasses all life, even yours. And while there is injustice, anesthetization, or evil, there moves a holy disturbance, a benevolent rage, a revolutionary love, protesting, urging, insisting that which is sacred will not be defiled. Those who bless the world live their life as a gesture of thanks
for this beauty and this rage. The choice to bless the world can take you into solitude to search for the sources of power and grace, native wisdom, healing, and liberation. More, the choice will draw you into community. The endeavor shared, the heritage passed on, the companionship of struggle, the importance of keeping faith, the life of ritual and praise, the comfort of human friendship, the company of earth, the chorus of life, welcoming you. None of us alone can save the world. Together, that is another possibility waiting. Our postlude today is Hymn to Joy by Beethoven. We're so thrilled to have Diane Broyles performing it today.